What happens when a small African country, already facing big challenges, decides to form a partnership with one of the world's most secretive regimes? Burkina Faso's recent move to rebuild ties with North Korea has sparked a lot of attention and concern. It's a choice that goes beyond diplomacy. It speaks to deeper issues of control, independence, and who gets to decide a nation's future. Led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is turning away from old alliances, especially with the West, and looking for new partners that could offer military support and political backing. This shift marks a bold new direction in the country's foreign policy, one that could change how power works in the region. Although it's too early to say what the full effects will be, one thing is clear. This isn't just a headline. It could change the way other African countries think about their own global relationships. But the question remains, what does North Korea hope to gain from this unlikely connection? No one can say for sure what the long-term outcome of this new alliance will be. Could it lead to military support, advanced weapons, training programs, or simply give Burkina Faso a louder voice in global politics, where African countries are often overlooked unless they have oil or minerals? One thing's certain, this isn't just a friendly handshake for show. This is about gaining real influence. For North Korea, it's a rare opportunity to make a mark in African affairs, a region it's mostly stayed out of. And for Burkina Faso, the message is loud and clear. We'll choose our own allies, with or without Western approval. Before we go any further, we'd like to hear from you. What do you think about Russia and North Korea possibly backing Traoré with troops? Share your opinion in the comments below. When Burkina Faso restored ties with North Korea, it wasn't just a symbolic move, it was a lifeline for both sides. For North Korea, it was a smart way to push back against global isolation. Imagine being locked out by most of the world, and then finding a new doorway into Africa. This isn't just about giving Burkina Faso some gear or military advice. It's about forming a deeper connection that helps North Korea prove it still has willing partners. That alone is a big win for Pyongyang's global image. Now here's what makes it even more interesting. North Korea may not have a strong economy, but it does have one powerful asset: its military industry. Behind closed borders, it's been producing weapons, training cyber units, and building everything from rifles to missile systems. Sanctions have hit its economy hard, but they haven't stopped the factories. Burkina Faso, meanwhile, is under growing pressure from armed groups and desperately needs military support. And North Korea has just the kind of equipment it wants. So this new relationship quickly becomes a transaction. Burkina Faso gets weapons, North Korea gets money, and something even more valuable: greater global influence. That money could be funneled straight into North Korea's defense programs, maybe even its nuclear ambitions. And there's more. By selling arms to a country like Burkina Faso, Pyongyang finds a clever way to get around international restrictions. Why follow the rules when your new allies are also tired of being told what to do? Burkina Faso's urgent need for weapons makes it the perfect customer. And for North Korea, it's a golden opportunity to earn income, gain influence, and stake out a presence in a new part of the world. This deal could even pave the way for similar ties with other countries in Africa or Asia that feel abandoned or punished by the West. So no, this isn't some random agreement. It's a move in a much larger strategy that North Korea has been building for years. Instead of competing directly with major powers like the US or Europe, it focuses on the places others have ignored, the parts of the world struggling with instability, conflict, and broken promises. And that's where the real game begins. Countries like France and the United States have made many attempts to bring stability to this region. But local communities are tired of waiting for real change. So when North Korea steps in offering help without preaching or conditions, it feels like a fresh approach. For Pyongyang, this move isn't just about Burkina Faso, it's about gaining ground in a region full of opportunity. This is a chance to quietly enter a part of the world with valuable natural resources and important trade routes. It's not only about supporting Traore, it's about gaining influence where other powers have stumbled. While trust in Western nations is fading, North Korea is quietly stepping in with a different message. We're here, and we're paying. Instead of experimenting in secret, North Korea can now watch how its missiles, cyber systems, and surveillance tech perform in real battles. It's like two unlikely allies helping each other. One needs firepower, the other needs results. Both stand to benefit. And if this partnership works, it could serve as a model. Other African countries facing pressure or conflict may start to take notice. If these tools work in Burkina Faso, why wouldn't they work elsewhere? That kind of thinking could turn into a major win for North Korea, not just in military sales, but in political influence. But the story doesn't stop at weapons. There's a bigger goal in play. North Korea is trying to shift the balance in a region where the West has dominated for decades. Africa has long been treated as a playground for global powers. Everyone wants a say, but few truly listen to African voices. So when North Korea stands behind a leader like Ibrahim Traoré, who openly rejects foreign control, it sends a strong message. North Korea is saying, "We may be cut off from much of the world, but we still have power. We don't follow your rules, we make our own." Supporting Burkina Faso is not just about defense, it's about standing up against a system that has pushed both countries to the margins. For years, North Korea has faced sanctions and been cast aside by Western governments. Now, it's forming new partnerships in places long overlooked or manipulated by those same powers. And that's not just a smart move, it's a powerful symbol. By joining forces with Burkina Faso, North Korea positions itself as a challenger to the existing world order, one that often tries to reshape Africa to fit Western interests. And for Traoré, this alliance offers a chance to act independently with the backing of a nation that understands what it means to be treated like an outsider. But this kind of decision doesn't come without consequences. Western nations are already reacting. There's talk of cutting financial aid, applying more sanctions, and distancing themselves diplomatically. Critics are speaking out loudly. Why partner with a country often labeled as dangerous and unpredictable? But from Traoré's perspective, it's a practical move. He needs military support, and he's not waiting around for Western approval. Still, this path brings new risks: economic pressure, political fallout, and greater international scrutiny. Traoré's decision marks a sharp break from the usual path followed by many African leaders. For years, Western countries have operated under a silent deal. Loans in exchange for influence, peacekeepers in exchange for compliance, a few roads built in exchange for loyalty. In return for their support, Western powers have always expected something back. Follow our rules, vote how we want at the UN, and stay in line. But Captain Traoré doesn't want that kind of deal. He's not aiming to be the kind of leader that global powers can hold up as an example of cooperation and obedience. Instead, he's rejecting the idea that progress must come with approval from outside. To him, real independence means being free to choose partners, even if those partners are disliked, controversial, or pushed aside by the international community. So when he reached out to North Korea, It wasn't about liking their government or agreeing with everything they do. It was about what North Korea represents to him. A country that stood on its own, refused to be controlled, and managed to survive despite global efforts to isolate it. That kind of strength and self-reliance is what Traoré respects. And that's exactly what worries many Western leaders. Because if Burkina Faso can break away from old power structures and find its own way militarily, politically, and economically, it sends a strong signal to the rest of Africa. You don't have to follow the old rules anymore. The concern isn't just about one partnership. It's about what happens next. What if other countries like Mali, Niger, Guinea, or those in Central Africa also start looking for partners outside the usual Western alliances, turning to Russia, China, Iran, or North Korea on their own terms? That's why Traoré is being seen as a threat, a rebel, maybe even a disruptor. Because his choices challenge a system that's been in place for over 50 years, a system where the West decides what's best for Africa and expects loyalty in return for money, aid, and praise. But Traoré is making a different bet. He believes Burkina Faso doesn't need to ask for permission to matter. He thinks the country can shape its own future, even if that means rejecting the usual playbook. He's not just pushing back, he's trying to turn the whole system upside down. For years, Burkina Faso followed the Western path, accepting foreign aid, joining international peace efforts, and listening to advice from former colonial powers and global institutions. But what did that path really bring? Slow progress, rising violence, and a country stuck just trying to survive. Now, Traoré is taking a bold step that few others have taken. He's walking away. He's stepping away from the belief that development needs a stamp of approval from outsiders. He's turning his back on a system that treats African nations like they always need help or oversight. And his decision to work with North Korea? It's not random, and it's not desperate. It's deliberate. It's a statement. He's saying, we're not interested in being told how to fix our problems by the same powers that helped create them. Western leaders might call it reckless. They might flood news outlets with warnings and threats of sanctions. But Traoré isn't backing down. Every angry headline, every threat of isolation only confirms what he already believes, that Burkina Faso is finally doing something bold enough to get noticed. And in his eyes, that's exactly what needs to happen. He doesn't see isolation as a punishment. He sees it as a fresh start, a chance to rebuild the country's future in a new way, on its own terms. For him, independence isn't just about flags and national anthems. It's about deciding who your partners are, how you protect your people, and who gets a voice in your future. That's why this alliance with North Korea feels different. It's not about liking everything the regime stands for. It's about shared goals. North Korea is one of the few countries that has resisted enormous global pressure and still held its ground. Sanctions, bans, political threats, you name it, they've been through it. And they're still standing. That's the kind of resilience Traoré wants to tap into. Not because it's perfect, but because it's powerful. While much of the world sees North Korea as a global outcast, Captain Traoré sees something different. Strength through survival. He sees a nation that's been pushed, punished, and isolated, but never gave in. And in that, he sees potential. This partnership isn't just about politics. It's about shared thinking. Two countries that have been told to stay in their place are now choosing to ignore those orders. Burkina Faso, often treated as a minor player on the global stage, is standing up and saying, "We'll decide our future, even if others don't like it." And North Korea? They're more than ready to walk beside someone who finally speaks their language, one of resistance and independence. So, this isn't just an exchange of weapons or resources. It's a statement, a joint act of defiance, a rejection of a world order where a few powerful nations decide who leads and who follows. For the first time in a long while, Burkina Faso isn't just reacting to outside pressure. It's pushing back. And North Korea's support is not just about military help, it's about changing the whole conversation. Think of it like this. For years, global politics has worked like a classroom. The West plays the role of strict teachers, while everyone else is expected to stay quiet and follow instructions. Now, two of the most defiant students have teamed up, and they're rewriting the rules. Let's be honest, North Korea didn't suddenly become a world savior. This is a country that has spent decades saying no to America, no to Europe, and no to the international community. It's not isolated by accident, it's by design. Instead of shopping malls, they've built missiles. Instead of banks, they've built bunkers. Why? Because they want to do things their own way, without outside approval. So when Traore turned away from the West and looked toward Pyongyang, it wasn't random, it was intentional. It was about more than weapons, it was about attitude. North Korea sees a bit of itself in Burkina Faso, a small country, often surrounded by threats, yet still standing and refusing to stay silent. When Traore teamed up with Kim Jong-un, he wasn't just picking a partner, he was making a bold statement. You don't have to like us, but we'll choose our own path. And North Korea? They admire that kind of courage. To them, Burkina Faso isn't just another African country. It's the next chapter in their fight against a world they believe is run by arrogant powers. So whether they send weapons, advisors, or political support, it's about more than strategy. It's about shaping a new global picture, one where the traditional superpowers don't get the last word. Their message is loud and clear. You don't need to be accepted to be strong. You don't need permission to take a stand. What you need is the courage to go against the flow. That's why this alliance stands out. It's not just two countries making a deal, it's two voices shouting back at a system that's tried to silence them for years. For Burkina Faso, this isn't about hunting for the best bargain. It's about standing with pride. Traore isn't asking for handouts wrapped in strings. He wants something more lasting: respect, control, and the right to choose. He's not looking for loans tied to lectures. What Traore wants is strength on his own terms. And even with all its problems, North Korea offers something different: support without strings attached. No lectures, no conditions, just a shared goal. So when Western leaders call him reckless or irresponsible, he doesn't flinch. In fact, he wears those words like a badge of honor. Because from his point of view, if the same countries that failed to bring peace and progress to Burkina Faso are upset, then he might actually be on the right path. But Traore's message isn't just for his own country. He's speaking to every African nation that's ever felt overlooked, disrespected, or used. He's saying, you have the right to say no. You can choose your own direction. You don't need anyone's permission to take charge of your future. There was a time when Burkina Faso was just seen as a small, landlocked country in West Africa, struggling with poverty, instability, and largely ignored on the world stage. That image is changing and fast. Today, under the bold leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is catching global attention. Not because it's asking for help, but because it's standing tall and choosing its own path. This isn't the same script Africa has been handed for generations. It's something new. And at the center of this shift is one of the world's most unexpected alliances: Burkina Faso and North Korea. At first glance, it sounds unusual, but look deeper. These are two nations that have been pushed around by the same forces outside pressure. foreign control, and years of being told how to run their countries. Now, they've found common ground not through location, but through shared experience and ambition. Burkina Faso has become exactly the kind of partner North Korea wants: strong-willed, fearless, and determined to build a future without waiting for approval from the usual global powers. Traore's Burkina Faso is no longer asking to be saved. It's rewriting the rules. And in doing so, it has become a symbol of what it looks like when a country decides to stop following and starts leading. For North Korea, this partnership is a major win. It gives them a serious connection in Africa, a continent rich with resources, filled with youth, and hungry for transformation. Even more importantly, it allows both countries to share a clear message with the world. We will not be controlled. Together, they're showing that resistance isn't just possible, it can inspire others. This isn't a relationship built on PR or empty smiles. It's based on a deep understanding of what it means to be pushed aside, punished for being different, and still standing strong. It's about knowing what it feels like to be judged unfairly and choosing to keep going anyway. So now, let's ask the big question. Has the West, with all its influence, truly looked out for Africa's best interests? Or has it just used the language of aid, democracy, and development as a way to keep control? That's the real conversation. And we want to hear from you. Is this a brave move by Burkina Faso? Is it risky? Or is it exactly the kind of bold action Africa needs to stop being seen as someone's project and start being seen as a true global power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Be honest. Be bold. Your voice matters in this conversation. If these are the kinds of discussions that get you excited, don't just sit back, get involved. Subscribe to our channel, not just to stay updated, but to become part of a growing community that believes Africa deserves to be heard on the global stage, not whispered about behind closed doors. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Every week, we dive into the stories, alliances, challenges, and triumphs shaping Africa's future. This isn't just content, it's a movement. Let's educate, question, and challenge the narrative we've been given for so long. Together, let's make sure Africa doesn't just follow the world's path, but forges its own.